Crooked lobbyists
illegally lobbying
lobbyists into Washington.
Biggest lobbyists in Washington.
If you're a lobbyist who never gave us money, I didn't talk to you. If you're a lobbyist who gave us money, I might talk to you.
Welcome to the revolving door, the soul-sucking, profit-seeking industry that we've all been overtaken by. So let's go over how every single one of you watching this is being robbed. They use every connection, friendship, piece of information to lobby for every government contract possible. Last year in 2024, companies spent $4 billion on lobbying, the most that's ever been spent. The reason why they're spending so much is because they're being rewarded. There are over 13,000 lobbyists fighting, scratching, crying, doing anything to scam taxpayers by the revolving door. The trick here is they never actually leave either position, they just remain in the revolving door, allowing them to lobby and shift billions and billions of dollars from the government. This money goes to massive corporations and overflows into the pockets of executives, but who's doing it and how does it affect all of us? I'll tell you, they aren't lobbying for funsies. This is purely for financial gain because ex-government officials get fat contracts when they sign with private companies. The secrets and relationships they made when they were in high-ranking government positions is usually worth a lot of money.
A lot of these retired U.S. military personnel have expertise that these countries really value as they try and expand their own militaries. It's a new revolving door, and it can be very lucrative for retired U.S. military personnel.
Let's simplify this. Imagine I have a drug that I'm trying to get approved. I have to run studies on this drug to pass the FDA, but my results aren't showing up the way I want them to. In fact, my drug is even causing people's hearts to stop working when they take it. Well, that sounds like a pretty big deal, and it probably shouldn't be approved. I have a lot of money. I tell my lobbyists I hired with connections to call the director of the FDA and say, I need this drug to go through. And would you look at that? My drug passes and is signed directly by the director of the agency. But here's the thing, as simple as this is, it's happening. And this happened with a drug called Seroquel. The experts marked this drug with links to cardiac arrest, and the FDA staff said they had a very negative presentation on it, but somehow it still passed. And the company's takeaway that was testing the drugs came away as definitive and very dangerous. But it doesn't seem like that changed anyone's mind because the committee voted overwhelmingly to pass the drug. And not only did they pass the drug, but they passed it with no warnings or labels on it. Thomas Laffren was the director of psychiatry products at the FDA and signed the drug Seroquel to be used by the public. Keep in mind, they knew this drug was causing cardiac arrest. 2 years later, after signing it to the public, they had to put a warning on it because who could have known? It was causing people's hearts to stop.
Seroquel was like a double whammy in causing my bad health and my bad cholesterol numbers. So like I said, if you are taking Seroquel for an extended period of time, please do get your cholesterol levels checked. Because like I said, for me, it wasn't going to be a case of you might have a heart attack. I was told you will have a heart attack, and that is all down to that poison they call Seroquel.
But for people like Laffren, this is no problem because he just quit the agency and started a consulting firm working with drug companies. And one of his clients is, you guessed it, the same company that made Seroquel that he personally signed through in 2009 that was killing people. Now his agency helps drug makers on how to navigate FDA approvals and just hires people straight from the FDA.
That trust comes from knowing that teams of doctors, biologists, chemists, pharmacists, and other health scientists at the FDA are working tirelessly to protect the health of the American public by making careful, informed decisions about which new drugs to approve.
This is to help him get insider information and continue his relationships to keep lobbying. There is an insane amount of money in this industry. In 2024, there was $150 million paid to lobbying for pharmaceutical companies alone. We are talking big money. Lobbying has no Democrat or Republican alliance. Do not get it twisted. While there are some outliers, this is happening among most elected officials. Between 2023 and 2024, lobbying money for politicians was almost split evenly between both parties. $7 million went to Democratic candidates, while almost $9 million went to Republicans. American politics seem to be so heated and split, it's amazing they can agree on one thing, and that's getting rich.
Let me give you one example. Lobbyists. We pay in the United States by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. This is an issue I've been working hard on with some success. Take a wild and crazy guess. How many lobbyists are there from the drug companies in Washington, D.C.?
Well, over 1,000.
Over 1,000, right? There are 100 members of the Senate, 435 members of the House, 535 members of Congress. There are 1,800 well-paid lobbyists representing the drug companies, including former leaders of the Republican and Democratic Party. That is why, one of the reasons why, we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs.
If you are learning anything or are even entertained, please subscribe. This is kind of a longer part series. Once you understand the revolving door, I'm going to talk more about kind of companies that benefit and people that benefit from it. Also, an absolute shameless plug. There's a link to my Patreon in the description. I don't know if I'll get a sponsor for these videos, but I'm going to keep making them. If you think it's bad in the big pharma industry, the defense sector in the US, such as the Pentagon, is disturbing. About 80% of 4-star officers that retire from the military are hired in the defense industry for private firms. So after you get done dominating the world in the US military, you get to go take advantage of normal Americans and dominate them too. There is so many people being shifted around from business to government, it's really hard to keep track of who's doing what. And it seems by the time people are sounding the alarm about these things happening, the damage has already been done. But this is not some mysterious cabal that's running our government from the shadows. This is out in the open. They talk about it in the news and public meetings, so people know what's going on. The people in the government and big business know that Democrats and Republicans both accept money to push and lobby bills that benefit these massive corporations, just no one really cares. The reason this is important is because there's this narrative that these scary people are hiding in the shadows and taking advantage of everyone. No one is hiding, it's put out in the open, and they do it right in front of our faces because they just don't care. Most of the people that do care don't have the wherewithal to stand up against these companies, and the people that do, they just pay them off, or I guess black bag them and send them to El Salvador. But who are they paying? As an example, in 2021, 36 individuals left the Pentagon to join private defense firms. The firms that hired these former Pentagon officials received over $89 billion in government contracts. Like, this shit is not a coincidence. I am able to find this information, it's just in places that are boring to read or the media doesn't put much play on it. Let's look at the revolving door of defense contractors receiving funding from the government, but now we'll put some faces and names to this. Heidi Grant worked for the Department of Defense from 2017 to 2020, overseeing a budget of around $50 billion. And during her time, she would hype up Boeing about how sick their killing machines are and their awesome military capabilities. She would talk about the F-15, calling it the most capable fighter in the world, but I'm sure she wasn't doing that for any reason, right? If you don't know, Boeing is in the top 5 federal contractors and has been ranked one of America's top exporters of arms. She told the agency that she worked for that she was discussing a contract with Boeing on July 29th, and within a day, she signed with Boeing. But I'm sure there was nothing going on prior to that, and every choice she was making was super ethical. So let's really simplify this. Companies hire ex-government officials or poach current government officials to work for their business. These former members then disclose insider knowledge about how to get these contracts, and then those companies are rewarded with billions and billions of dollars. One of the most important pieces is when they turn into lobbyists, they still have friends in the government. It's no different than if I worked at Nike and quit and went back to my old coworkers and asked them to hook me up with an employee discount. So they use their relationships to shape policies and legislation in whatever way fits the company they're lobbying for. But if we stick to the Nike analogy, it would be like if I created a business that partnered with resellers of Nike, which resellers are some of the worst people in the world, by the way. But anyways, so I tell my old manager that I have a relationship to make a rule that only sells shoes to people wearing red. I am now the only one with that information, so I tell my group of resellers to get Nikes, you have to wear red, and they go buy all the Nikes like the scum they are. I'm aware it's not the perfect analogy, but hopefully you get it. This happens everywhere. It happens in healthcare, military, education, literally anything they can privatize, they are going to lobby for. One reason it can be hard to keep track of all the money that is shifting hands is because lobbyists have to disclose who they talk to. But consultants or consulting firms don't have to tell people, so it kind of gets muddied in the background. When I hear people talk about the revolving door, a lot of the time it's focused here in the US. But let me tell you, lobbyists, ex-government officials will go wherever the money takes them. Even ex-military members, their loyalty is to money.
The Saudi kingdom, after all, has deep pockets.
The best example of this is in Saudi Arabia. 15 retired generals and admirals work as paid consultants in their defense ministry. Now, Saudi Arabia may spend a shit ton of money to be portrayed as this nation that is ethical and really cool, but they have been actively committing genocide. And just like the US for the last 20 years, they have also been bombing the shit out of Yemen. And as of right now, in April of 2025, we are still bombing Yemen.
On Saturday, the 15th of March, shortly after 1 p.m. Eastern Time, at the direction of the President, U.S. Central Command began precision strike operations against the Houthis to restore freedom of navigation and American deterrence.
Without going into too much detail, the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the kingdom's ruler of Saudi Arabia, has funded proxy wars in the two nations of Yemen and Syria. This has caused a man-made famine that has killed over 85,000 children and put 10 million Yemenis on the brink of starvation. One of Saudi's biggest paid advisors is an ex-Marine, James L. Jones, who was a national security advisor to Barack Obama. And he is there right alongside ex-Army General Keith Alexander, who was in the Bush administration. George Bush and Barack Obama are both mass murderers, so I'm not surprised by their consultants. But it's important to know these ex-military members are working hand in hand with a Saudi regime that tortures and kills journalists. They implement any human rights activists who stand against Mohammed bin Salman. Any ties to America, you obviously have ties to Israel. Israel and Saudi Arabia have been trying to further their relationship even during a genocide, and the people of Saudi Arabia have not been happy about that. At this point, what more can we expect? There's a lot I could go into about Saudi Arabia and this guy, but that's for a different video. A lot of blame should be put on these lobbyists, but the issue is the policies in the US that allow this to happen. If you could take out lobbying politicians and government officials in America, it would pretty much be a better place overnight. The best thing I can compare this to is professional sports players not being able to bet on their own games because they're involved and they're privy to too much information.
Tonight, the NBA is doling out a lifetime ban to Raptors forward Jonte Porter Jr.
Well, this morning, Major League Baseball has permanently banned a player for betting on the sport.
It's basically the same thing. Allowing players to do this has and would impact the choices they make on or off the court or field. So we hold professional sports players to a higher standard than our government officials. We are essentially allowing politicians to do insider trading and betting, which at this point seems like most people will do in their positions. The best way to fix the problem is to eliminate it entirely the same way they did with sports betting. We can't just eliminate lobbying because it's a constitutional right and it's important. It's this abomination of what it's turned into. The revolving door that has allowed our government officials to not only take advantage of the system, but the people who voted for them needs to be stopped. Because to finish this video, I want to go over a few numbers. According to an anti-corruption organization called Represent Us, the ROI on lobbying is $760 for every $1 spent. So to put that into perspective, in 2024, $377 million was spent on lobbying. So the ROI, the return on investment for the companies that spent that money, is whatever this number is. And how does this affect your life and my life for everyday things? And it comes down to our tax dollars, because we are spending billions and billions of dollars to let these people give out contracts to their friends while we overspend on them. But please, don't just take my word for it. Go look into these things. Go Google this information, because I promise you, it is way worse than I'm making it seem.